Happening now on Grid Tonight. Season 10 of Formula E is here. Who are the favorites entering this weekend's Mexico City E-Prix, and what did Mahindra do that upset so many people all over the internet? Santino Ferrucci is returning to Adrian Newsom's iconic number 14. Will the new alliance with Team Penske make him more of a threat to win this year's Indy 500? And then the big news coming out of Formula One. Guenther Steiner is no longer the team principal at Haas F1. Why is one of the most recognizable and popular faces in the F1 paddock out? And who's this guy on the screen right here replacing him? Hello to all our viewers watching here in the United States and around the world. Welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program, our first show of 2024. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. I'm Kobe Lambert, and with me, Joshua Birch. Welcome back. Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, and our special guest, Edward Hunter from Formula E Zone. We encourage everyone to comment in the chat, ask questions, and support us through Super Chat. Now, Josh, take it away with our top story this evening, a preview of the Formula E season opener.
Thank you, Kobe. Welcome back, and everybody. Pleasure to be back. Let's get into it. So, kicking off our first weekend of race coverage in 2024, the season opener for the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship takes place this Saturday. Season 10 begins with the Hankook Mexico City E-Prix. Last season, we saw Andretti Global and Jake Dennis claim the championship, holding off Envision Racing's Nick Cassidy. However, Cassidy has switched teams. He's with Jaguar TCS Racing now. Cassidy used the Jaguar powertrain last year at Envision, so going to the factory team now shouldn't make the transition too difficult, while Andretti is using the Porsche powertrain, the photo courtesy there of the FIA. Ed and Matt are with me this week as well. So, Joe Sammaker says, welcome back all. And hi, Ed. I love the new graphics, love the new feel to it. Ed, starting with you. Welcome to the show. Dennis used consistency to win last year's World Championship. Will the same model of consistency work in 2024, or will this be Cassidy's year to win it for Jaguar?
Well, I think it's really hard to split both of those drivers because Jake Dennis had a very, very good start to the season. And then the middle had about 4 or 5 races where he scored no points whatsoever. And then constantly kept finishing on the podium, usually in second place, but he got another win in Rome, I think, near the end of the season. So, I think and Nick Cassidy, on the other hand, Jaguar were a little bit struggling for reliability and efficiency beginning of last season, and then really got things together from about... I would say sort of Hyderabad, Sao Paulo, Cape Town sort of onwards. They were really one of the fastest cars in the field and winning lots of races consistently. Cassidy won 4 races last year, and I think Mitch Evans won quite a few as well, despite having a little bit less consistency sort of kept him out of that title fight, even though him and Cassidy were having a massive fight for second place at the very end of the season. So, yeah, I think consistency, again, it's going to be the big watchword. But I think given what we got the powertrain homologation, so the only improvements you're going to be able to make are with the software. So I think everyone is quite rightly expecting Jaguar to be very, very strong. I think also look out for Jaguar's customer team, Envision, because we did see Jake Dennis and Andretti as customers win the Drivers' Championship before. Envision as customers won the Teams' Championship. And so, yeah, I think the factory Porsche squad are going to have to deal with 2 very, very competitive Andrettis in the form of Jake Dennis and his teammate Norman Nato, who is also going to be very, very exciting to watch next season. So, yeah, I think lots to look out for, but I think the formula hasn't changed all that much. I do think your likes of Evans, Cassidy, Dennis, they were the star performers last season. There might be a few joining them, but I think they're definitely free to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Ed, there. Those are going to be the guys to look out for through the season. We're going to have the usual Formula E weekly interlopers where one team gets it right or the next week gets it completely wrong, and we don't see them much at all. We think of DS last year. They had a bit of a shocker, didn't they, with Stoffel and Jev. We kind of all expected them to be pretty good last season, and they really didn't show up at all. I think it's going to be probably between, to use a Murray Walker line, the teammates and great mates at Jaguar, Mitch Evans and Nick Cassidy. Jake Dennis will be in there. And I think the podiums and 4th place finishes throughout the year, the consistency is going to be whoever we get to London in, when's that, end of June for the finale at XL. Whoever's picked up those most podiums and 4th and 5th place finishes throughout the year is going to be within the title chances, because if you and like Jaguar last season, they got behind, as you mentioned at the beginning of the season. If they had one more round, then Cassidy probably would have been there. But you don't want to get too far behind in the early rounds. Obviously, a lot of tracks in that early portion that we know, and the teams know. Mexico coming up this weekend, then the double header at Diriyah, and then to Brazil after that. Now that India's fallen by the wayside, unfortunately, Hyderabad has been now officially cancelled, so that is gone. So 3 tracks to start the year that the teams know very well, and everyone will want to get off to the best start possible. And if you have a DNF this weekend and you're let's say you're running in the top 5-6 in the race on Saturday and end up with coming away with nothing, then it's already going to be a struggle to get points back.
Absolutely. Now let's take a look at some of the changes that occurred over the off-season. We've already mentioned Nick Cassidy moving over to Jaguar. Robin Friends has taken his seat at Envision. Sam Bird is moving to McLaren as Eduardo Mortara heads over to Mahindra. And after losing his F1 drive last year, Formula E world champion Nick De Vries is back in the electric open wheel racing as Mortara's teammate at Mahindra. Lucas de Grassi stays on the Formula E grid, reuniting with at Norman Nato gets the pleasure of being teammates with Jake Dennis at Andretti. Also, Johan Jaruvula switches to Formula E after spending the last few years in Formula 2. He'll drive for Maserati alongside Max Guenther. The Indian driver also expressed disappointment with the recent cancellation of the Hyderabad E-Prix because that would have been his home race, as we heard from Matt a while ago. Joe says, I think if Jaguar can win in Mexico, they'll be hard to beat all year long. So just to quickly answer that one, I'll throw that one to you, Ed, as well. Jaguar, if they do win there, do you think that's a possibility that they'll be hard to beat for the rest of the year?
Well, we were saying the same things about Porsche last year, and look what happened. So the software war is going to run and run. Jaguar got things together in the second half of last season, but there's going to be a point where we get diminishing gains, I think, especially because we're getting to the end of the sort of first 2 seasons, this sort of first era of Gen 3, and then we're going to get Gen 3.5, I believe it's being mooted as, being introduced with a slightly different aero package, and the homologation period ends, so we'll get some new powertrains for season 11. And we know there's lots of interesting teams like Mahindra. There's a lot of rumors about them tying up with AMG Performance, who of course worked very, very closely with Mercedes. There's a lot of people go, oh, it's going to be a Mercedes tie-up, but I think there might be something big rumbling there. But yeah, anyway, to get back to the actual question, I think a lot of people, the bookies, are going to be putting all the low odds on Jaguar winning in Mexico. But I think Porsche, they were quick there last year. I see no reason why they shouldn't be quick this year again, so long as they get qualifying right, which was always the Achilles heel, especially for the factory team. And I think I'll be interested to see who's operationally sharp and who maybe needs to brush up on a few things by the time free practice is over.
Matt, anything to add on that?
No, as we mentioned before, it's going to be between, I think, Porsche and their customer, and Jaguar and their customer. So that's going to be like 8 cars, basically, at the front of the field throughout the season. And as I mentioned before, we'll have teams doing the Formula E dance throughout the season of good weekend, bad weekend.
And linking back to that as well, we discussed about all these changes, Matt. Which driver and his new team really intrigues you the most coming into this new season?
There's 2 that stand out for me from the list that you mentioned. Jake Dennis last year, kind of a one-man team a little bit, wasn't he? Andretti you had no backup, and then of course we had all that kind of Porsche shenanigans and falling out at Excel, where they were all trying to gang up on him unintentionally, basically, in that on the Saturday race especially. He's got Norman Nato alongside him this season, not slow and not a rookie to Formula E. He knows which way is up, so that'll be interesting. But I think Johan Jaruvula coming in across from Formula 2, he's shown very well in that series. Of course, this is very different. I know they're still single seaters, but it's a very different beast. I think if he can get going over those first 3 or 4 rounds before we get back to Europe, well, there's much of a European season in Formula E anymore. But once we get through those first 3 races, if he can get some good points on his feet under the table, see how Jahan goes.
Ed?
Well, I look at the list you mentioned there, and there's a driver on there that's changed or rejoined Formula E after leaving in the middle of last season that's not been brought up at all. And that, of course, is Oliver Rowland driving again for Nissan after his slightly abortive season and a half at Mahindra, which so that I think that's going to be very interesting because Sasha Fenestraz, I thought, had a really, really good first half of last season before, unfortunately, got to a few tracks that he found a bit more difficult. And Norman Nato started, his experience really shone through there. And so, yes, while I think Norman is going to do hopefully really, really well at Andretti. I agree with what Matt says that he's had basically 4 years now, and each of them in Formula he's been with a different team. He won, of course, the race with Venturi back at the end of his very, very first season, then got sacked and spent pretty much a whole year as a test driver with Jaguar before getting that chance with Nissan. And so I can definitely see why Nissan have gone with Roland again, because he's just an amazing qualifier. My dad really likes Roland because he's from Yorkshire, Barnsley in Yorkshire, so that's not surprising because Dad's pretty devout Yorkshireman. Not that being Yorkshireman is a religion; it's more of a nationality thing. But anyway, Anyway, I think Robin Freins, I think we mentioned, very, very interested to keep an eye on him because Robin, again, he had that hand injury last year. He's still got the pole position with that in right conditions at Berlin. So his class really shone through despite the fact that the Mahindra powertrain is just not quite up to snuff really at the moment. And we know Mahindra's, their relationship with ZF, who made that powertrain, is basically disintegrated, which is why there's no more ZF stickers on that Mahindra. I think... that's the things that come to mind. I think Oliver Rowland is, for me, the standout to keep your eyes out on if Nissan can still keep that good qualifying pace, because they got 3 poles last year, if you include the one that Jake Hughes got as well. So I definitely think the 2, of course, because he got the other one in Monaco as well as the one in Diriyah, which, of course, I don't count for my own reasons. But this is why I got confused. Anyway, so yeah, that's my answer. I've stand it now.
We'll stay with you, though, because I want to ask you a follow-up on that one. What will you be looking for from each of the teams in the practice sessions for any signs of improvement from last year? Would it be too early to tell in the first 2 practice sessions?
I think main thing we're going to be keeping from Mexico specifically, it's we're going to see some televised use of the attack charge in the pit lane, which of course is in preparation for Misano, which of course is round 5, isn't it, after Sao Paulo, effectively?
4 and 5 now, double header.
Yeah, exactly. It's the double header. So pretty much all of the double headers that we have from the middle of the season onwards are planned to be attack charge rounds where effectively everyone, I believe it's mandatory, each team has got 1 charger. There's a little hole at the back of the airbox, essentially, which is the charging port, essentially like your mobile phone, essentially. And they plug it in for about 30 seconds. They get about 20% more battery to use. Yeah, exactly like Josh's microphone as he demonstrates there. And now the microphone won't work because this is what always happens when Josh messes around with these sorts of things. Oh, no, using the other mic.
Dead mic.
Yeah, here we go. Me being all paranoid. Anyway, yeah, so anyway, Josh, you idiot, what are you doing? But anyway, I lost my train of thought completely now because of that. But what I was trying to say was, I think that's going to be interesting just to sort of see it in action, because we saw obviously testing in Valencia preseason wasn't televised, so I think there was a lot of this is gonna look really silly sort of comments on social media and look how clownish and amateurish this looks. But I think seeing them actually practice it on a sort of race day, I think might give a different feel to it. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see because that practice is really going to come in handy when they get to Misano effectively. But in terms of the actual times, the track in Mexico, it doesn't get used all that much, so it's going to rubber in. We've got high altitude, so slipstream is going to be very, very effective here. So energy efficiency won't necessarily be the be-all and end-all. I think those that qualify well are probably likely to finish well, unless the energy efficiency is really bad, like we saw with Mahindra, with Lucas Grassi getting on pole last year and then struggling just about to hold on to that 3rd place on the podium. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot to look out for, but it won't be the obvious. I wouldn't necessarily think the people who top the timing sheets in FP1 are going to win it.
Of course, we have to always mention with Formula E, if you get it wrong in practice and have a shunt, you've got to get the car repaired fairly quickly for the qualifying session and then obviously the race, because it all does happen on the single day. So teams getting it wrong on that, we had that of course last year with the new car, and we had the brake issues, and Sam Bird had a shunt in, I think, the first moments of shakedown, wasn't it, or practice, whatever it was called back then.
He had a horrible one, didn't he? Because that was when Jaguar's reliability was still not quite up to snuff, and I think they had the car shut down on him in qualifying. He had an issue in qualifying. He didn't qualify well. And then the race, it came to a dead stop.
The race. Yeah.
And Mark Preston was with us, wasn't he, Josh, in the live commentary? And he literally started criticizing the quality control in Jamie, saying this is the sort of thing you catch in bench testing on your rigs. It shouldn't be happening in a race weekend.
You mentioned attack charge, and we haven't really talked about it. We're not going to talk about it too much until we get to Misano.
I probably talked about it way too much already.
The race. But for what it's going to look like, for anyone that follows sports car racing, is a fuel-only pit stop where cars come in and they plug in for an allotted time and then go back out. So there'll be people cleaning visors and checking for damaged wings and that kind of thing. There's not going to be tyre changes, but there might be. You may see tyre changes throughout the season, depending on what tyre wear is like. But that's going to be interesting when we get down the road. We've got a bit of a season of two halves with non-attack charge races at the beginning of the season here, the next couple of months. And then when we get to Misano, as we mentioned, then it will come in to force there for pretty much every race from there on out.
It's going to be really interesting to see as well with the street races how this new attack charge is going to work, because, of course, they're waiting until they get to a professional circuit to make sure there's no problems on it. But that's a whole different conversation we'll get into later on in the season when it comes into effect, as we say, in Misano. Now, in the last few seasons, we've seen Jaguar get off to a slow start. However, as the season goes on, they seem to get better and better, with Mitch Evans being in the title hunt. He was clearly their number one driver, with Sam Bird struggling to match him. Now, he'll have some competition for the role as top driver at Jaguar with the arrival of Nick Cassidy. Matt, standing with you on this one, will this driver lineup make Jaguar hard to beat in the team's championship, or do you see the new teammates on a collision course down the road?
It's certainly on paper the strongest teammate lineup that we've got across the paddock. So, and they are, as I mentioned before, really good mates and have been since they were like 6 or 7. So they hopefully won't end up clashing and falling out later on in the year while fighting for a winner in a championship, because that'll be drama, won't it? But yeah, certainly they've got the strongest pairing and one of the strongest powertrains. They've had a few little movers and shaking behind the scenes in terms of people and technical people in the team. Hopefully that's all been sorted. And as we mentioned before, and as I said, if you get off to a slow start, you're always playing catch up. Feel like they have got all the pieces in play this season to finally get over the line and take a championship with one of the two Kiwis.
Well, I think I agree with most of Matt's statement there, because I think the reason Jaguar often had a slow start in especially the Gen 2 era mainly was because they were having to fight against DS Techeetah and Mercedes, who were the two juggernauts of the era, essentially, whereas Jaguar joined right at the tail end of Gen 1, essentially. So I think Season 3 was their first season, wasn't it? And so they were not only were they a newer team, although they had Williams Advanced Engineering, who was still a big part of that team, and part of the workforce there. And then Williams Advanced Engineering been involved since the very beginning of Formula E, making the batteries, essentially, and those sort of powertrains in the first season that they had to use. But in terms of Evans versus Cassidy, we did see them clash a couple of times. Like Rome in particular comes to mind, and it was clear that they were both trying not to say anything that would upset the other, even though both of them were really, really annoyed, because they knew basically for both of them it meant it was a much, much harder job to catch up to Jake Dennis, because he just basically was able to control that race thereafter with by just keeping Norman Nater close enough to keep Sam Bird at bay and the other Jaguar that was clearly more efficient than the Porsche at that phase of the season. So yeah, they really did open the door by having that clumsy collision in Rome. I think Cassidy also, if I'm being completely honest, the Jakarta where he bumped into Pascal Wehrlein, a bit of an off day there, I think, on that one for Nick. So I don't think, and Mitch Evans, infamous for just having horrendous bad luck. I have to say, you think back to Cape Town last year where he was running in the top 4, potentially in that fight for victory, and then had a sort of penalty for power overuse, I think, that Jaguar effectively got wrong. Yeah. And there's a couple of it's usually early in the season. Mitch Evans just has horrendous bad luck, and then towards the end he'll win like a couple of races in a row and have a really, really good middle or end to the season. Usually is the way for Mitch Evans, but I think both of them are easily good enough to win a championship, and it's just going to be a case of who qualifies better, who manages their energy better, and perhaps in these attack charge races later in the season, who gets first call on the pits, basically, which could be very, very intriguing because each team has only got one charger. So it's not like Formula One where you can double stack essentially without losing too much time. You've got to actually really be on it when it comes to strategy and Formula E in all sorts of aspects. So Jaguar, they're definitely a top team of this era with, like I said, DS Techeetah and Mercedes effectively departing because Techeetah went into administration and Mercedes decided they'd had enough for their own reasons that I've talked about, I guess. The board, I guess, got bored of Formula E. But yeah, I think all the ingredients are there for Jaguar to succeed. And there was there was a friend of mine, and it was Jack Pickering, yes, it was last night actually, in the Formula E Zone show, who said, if Jaguar don't win the team's championship this year, then I think somebody needs to have a good look at themselves in the mirror or something along those lines, that it would be sort of inexcusable for them to not win, given the lineup and given they've got the best car at their disposal.
Joe Samaniego says, spot on with Evans. The bad luck at the start of the season hurts him. Win in Mexico, start off on the right foot. Hopefully so. Mahindra also has a stellar driver lineup with Eduardo Mortara and Nick De Vries. Mortara is coming off a down year at Maserati, and he's trying to rediscover his old competitive form. De Vries makes his Formula E return in a homecoming after a brief stint in Formula One, and I really mean brief. However, Mahindra hasn't been a competitive team for a while now. And Ed, starting with you on this one, do these two drivers bring hope for Mahindra's future, or are you expecting another tough year for the team?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to address a couple of the messages in the chat because Joe.
Oh, go on.
First of all, Joe agreed with me, which is very nice, about what I was saying about Evans' bad luck really just affecting how his season goes, especially when, to be honest, Formula E is such a short season. Even we've got 16 rounds, but a lot of them are at the same venues as well, so it goes by pretty quick. A little bit like the IndyCar season used to when it was all crammed into 5 or 6 months or whatever it was. Adam also asks, as you see at the bottom of the screen, will the Formula E Championship come down to the final weekend of the year? It always seems to. I can't think of it not, especially with it being a double header. It seems likely. I think especially if we've got those two Jaguars still fighting each other, and I'll just keep talking. So hey, Matt's back. There we go. Sorry, we
didn't touch anything.
It's okay. It's all good. But I think it's a near certainty that it's going to come down to, if not race 2 in London, then at the very least race 1.
Matt, I want to quickly ask you on this one as well, because Ed's brought up a good point. It has always been in the final weekend for Formula E, linking it to other series like the British Touring Cars, NASCAR. It seems to be one of very few series that does have the championship right down to the wire. So is that a good thing or a bad thing for the series?
Yeah, I mean, NASCAR's a bit of an exception, isn't it? Because it's always got to be the last race of the season with the way they do the playoffs and such. But yeah, Formula E, I don't remember there being, the Battersea ones both in the early portion did, and obviously others like last year. Most of them have been in London, which is quite nice for the contingency you can see on screen here, which is nice. But yeah, I think it is good. It keeps the drama, and we had plenty of that towards the end of last season, didn't we, in Formula E with the wacky weekend in Rome, with all the accidents and whatever was going on there. Then the weather in London as well on the Sunday, which had the delay, and even though the championship was wrapped up at that point. But yeah, it is good that it comes down, and we've had, like MotoGP as well last year, came down to the last race as well. It's only the highest echelon of the sport that gets wrapped up in August. So let's hope that it does again this coming season. And I think we've got all of the ingredients for it to go all the way to the end.
Yeah, Matt, just before we move on, it's only happened once in Formula E that's been wrapped up before the final weekend, and that was during the COVID year when De Costa sealed it about 3 or 4 races before the end.
But it wasn't the same venue.
Yeah.
It wasn't
the same venue, yeah. I'll give you that.
6 races, 9 days. Yeah, so technically it was the season finale. I did think about that, but it was in the same venue, and it was the 6 races in 9 days. So that counts as a season finale.
Anyway,
How
weird that was.
I know,
So-
I know. That was so weird. We had races on every day of the week. No, we've had, what was it? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Formula E, I think, is the only racing series on the planet that's had a race on every single day of the week. Right, getting back to the question about Mahindra with Eduardo
yeah.
Mortara and Nick de Vries, because we've still got a question. What do they bring then? Do they bring hope for Mahindra's future, or are you expecting another tough year for the team? And Ed, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, well, we at Formula E Zone, our magazine on our website is Mahindra themed for this month, and includes interview of Ido Mortara and another one with Frederick Bertrand. And he says that basically both Nick de Vries and Ido Mortara are signed on long-term contracts. We don't know exactly how long-term, of course, but they might be extended. They could well be. But essentially, a lot of the team is sort of, as I alluded to earlier, with them essentially, I don't want to say falling out, but they seem to have, the partnership with ZF has come to a conclusion. Let's put it that way. And they're certainly going to be looking for something different. And there's all sorts of things going on behind the scenes that Fred Bertrand, who of course used to be the FIA's man in charge of Formula E, and at the beginning of last year, essentially, he took over the running of that team from Dilbag Gill. So there's a sense that last year there wasn't a whole lot he could do. That was sort of year zero, and this is year one of what he's calling a 3-year plan, essentially. So De Vries and Mortara are there because I think both of them understand that they're going to be benefiting from all the changes that are being made behind the scenes at the moment, essentially, is what Fred Bertrand, to paraphrase very greatly. And Lucas Di Grassi was there before. He said something interesting about Lucas. I think that was along the lines of, he didn't quite have the right motivation in terms of what he was alluding to, I think, was that Roland and Di Grassi both wanted success in the short term because they're slightly because they've been in Formula E a while, and Lucas Grassi's only got one title and Oliver Run's got only one win to his name. So it sort of made sense that they ran out of patience. We got De Vries, who has his season 7 title, went off to Formula 1 and has come back. I think De Vries, very, very aggressive driver. We criticised him a few times during his 2 campaigns, 3 campaigns, I should say, with Mercedes. Even though he got some very, very good results. There are often times where he was pushing into people. I remember Mexico a few years ago in season 8, I think, where he was pushing into people left, right, and center in his sort of title defending campaign. But De Vries, his instincts are very, very good. He's still got his energy management is also very, very impressive as well. So I think Nick De Vries, he brings the sort of status of being a world champion as well with him. And on top of that, he's just, by all accounts, really, really friendly, easy to get along with, and very, very good. I think he's a very, very popular driver for good reason as well. And of course, having been in Formula 1, it might bring a few extra eyeballs to the team, although that's a more cynical motivation. Ido Mortara, very, very good driver as well. Runner-up, funnily enough, in the campaign that De Vries won, was with Venturi ever since the start of his career, and then it became Maserati, of course, and he had a pretty difficult year last year. So I think Ido Mortara looked very, very keen to not redeem himself, but to sort of get back on track and sort of show what he's made of in this Gen 3 car, because he had a top 4 in, I think, Rome last year, but otherwise his results were a little bit sort of patchy, and he didn't have a whole lot of good luck. There was a lot of races where his front wing mysteriously parted company with that car. So hopefully Ido Mortara, despite the fact that Mahindra's not going to be as competitive, he has a cleaner year, banks a lot more points, and maybe Mahindra begins that slow journey to get back to where it belongs, because they haven't won a race since D'Ambrosio in Marrakesh season 5, I believe, which is a long time ago now for that squad. So changes needed to be made. They are being made. And the drivers, I think, are central to that. We're going to see them, hopefully, there for a while to come.
They always went well in Marrakesh, from memory, did Mahindra? I think Rosenquist.
Shame it's not on the calendar this year, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. It is a shame because it's a good circuit, is Marrakesh. I think they'll go well. Let's not forget, De Vries hasn't driven this generation of car, obviously tested, of course, but as a race weekend and in the race, he hasn't driven it.
Now, you say he tested the car. He actually only did about 4 hours.
But they did get some compensation afterwards in a private test.
Yes, they've had a run in Spain over just before Christmas, the team, to catch up on the time that they lost in that Valencia paddock fire that we talked about on the show in November or whenever it was. But I'm interested to see how Nick goes. Mortara's always on the pace when he's got a decent car under him. So And don't forget, last year at Mexico, the race we're going to, of course, this weekend, Degrassi was on the front row and led early, and then, much like the rest of Mahindra's season, faded into oblivion after that. So let's hope they can not have that happen to them again this weekend.
It's going to be so much fun as well, seeing everything back in action, our first race. Now we're going to address an off-track incident involving Mahindra that has created a major online controversy, with the team receiving lots of backlash. Mahindra announced they've partnered with Ava Rose to become the team's artificial intelligence ambassador. So that means that Ava is not even a real person. You can see her on the screen now. In situations like this, teams save money by using AI instead of hiring an actual human being to be a brand ambassador. Lots of people online are calling this a slap in the face to women in the motorsports industry, undermining efforts to create a more inclusive environment by growing the number of women involved in motorsports worldwide. Now, we've brought Kobe back in for this as well, and Matt, will be starting with you. Did Mahindra make a mistake by going down the AI route, and do you believe the backlash is justified?
To quote a famous song title, it's a sign of the times. We had the whole actors thing last year with AI, and now it seems to have infiltrated motorsport. Maybe this will stop pointless press releases coming out, because they'll be written properly about some. No, I joke, of course. Poor old Ava's getting a load of backlash. Bless her. Oh no, hang on, she's not real. What about all these people in motorsport that are scrambling for a job to try and get their foot in the door, and now they've been replaced by a mythical robot creature? What a terrible, terrible thing! Just a really bad look for Formula E, which is supposed to be this futuristic, technology-driven championship, to have gone too far and brought this in. It's just, I saw that yesterday as soon as that was doing the rounds on the social media platform formerly known with the Bird, to just looked at him and, oh goodness, this is happening. This is a thing. This is the first controversy of 2024, and it's about someone that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I feel a lot of this, it's a gimmick, and it's not a particularly compelling one, in my opinion. I feel like without wanting to name names, the communications PR officer at Mahindra maybe needs a little bit, maybe needs to have his head checked a little bit, because the optics of this are pretty dire. And we really don't have. To be perfectly honest as well, Mahindra is a team that I have personally, without wanting to cast blame on it, I've heard a lot of the women that worked at the team in Mahindra in the past who did not come away with an entirely positive experience, to put it mildly. But I don't want to get into too many details about what I've heard, because I was basically told to keep my mouth shut, but by people I trust and respect. But anyway, So I think Mahindra of all teams doing this is an especially bad look, and I mean, it may get some attention, some controversy in the short term, but I think in the long run, there's even the other thing that we haven't talked. There's a real model in the team that they've modeled the appearance of this person on. That there's an actual employee at Mahindra, so this must be incredibly embarrassing for her. Basically, her likeness has been. I hope she's been compensated, because this seems, if not, like she's getting a very, very raw deal out of this. That Ava is the one they use to promote the team, and she's not good enough. So which is bizarre. I think you could literally just put anyone in there, like a model or an influencer in, and it would probably be significantly better, because at least their reactions, even if it was sort of, I'm just here for myself to make myself, look famous and pretty or whatever, that would be, at least their reactions would be genuine. And I think the problem with Formula E is a lot of it. We had a reputation in the early days, wasn't it? It was like, how do you do, fellow kids, with Fan Boost, which has since been rightly scrapped. I think maybe 8 years too late, in my opinion. but at least they did finally see sense when Gen 3 came around, and I thought we were past this. So yeah, it's a shame for Mahindra, that used to be one of the most fan-friendly teams. They called the fans the Passioneers. That passion always felt very genuine. It's a shame. I really like Frederick Bertrand. I think he's a great team principal, but I think the PR side of the team has has seen better days.
And before I answer the question, I'm going to catch up on some comments in the chat room. Our own Joe San Diego says, yes, it's so messed up to use AI. Can you imagine if a YouTube channel used AI to discuss motorsports news? And our own Ben Snyder also says that plenty of them already are. And it's getting a disturbing number of people to watch. I had no idea that was a thing, and I'll make sure to stay away from those particular channels. And Alex Fleener, who participates in our Pick a Winner game and typically does extremely well, says that Mahindra is the winner of the worst decision of the week so far. I totally agree with you, Alex. I believe I was telling Matt earlier. I have no idea how anybody could look at doing this, bringing in a person who doesn't even exist and an AI brand ambassador and been like, this is a great idea, let's do this. And the most telling thing to me is Mahindra's social media posts of this is still up to this very moment. Typically, when you see a lot of backlash like this against an organization, they'll end up deleting it. But Mahindra's post is still up. I honestly thought it would be down by now, but I guess they feel like they're not doing anything wrong at all. And Alex Fleener also bring up another good point, saying, but they also have gotten what they wanted with this. They're definitely in the headlines this week. Yeah, but they're in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. But I guess they figure that, you know, any press is good press, whether it's good or it's bad. But yeah, I totally agree with you guys. Have no idea why Mahindra thought that this was the way to go, especially since it's hard enough for a lot of women in motorsports to receive opportunities in this industry. So I feel like they could have definitely hired like an actual woman, a real person, to be their brand ambassador without having to go to this Ava Rose AI thing that doesn't even exist. It just doesn't make any sense. And Josh, you did bring up the point of wanting to save money. You know, all businesses, you know, whether it's motorsports or businesses, you know, anywhere, they'll do anything they can to save money. And Mahindra probably saving a lot of money by using the AI brand ambassador instead of hiring a real person. But I feel like it would have been more genuine if they actually hired a real woman to be the brand ambassador instead of going to AI, because it just doesn't sit well with me. And obviously, if you read the comments on Mahindra's Instagram post, it doesn't sit well with a lot of people. And like you rightfully said, Josh, a lot of people feel like that this is a massive slap in the face to trying to make motorsports more inclusive to women everywhere, all over the world.
It massively is as well. And I just want to point out here that none of us at the Grid Network would ever use artificial intelligence to replace us.
And now it's time for Ed to pick his winner for the Mexico E-Prix.
Well, that's certainly one of the more interesting lead-ins I've had.
I couldn't resist it.
Well, that wasn't AI. That was you using text-to-speech. You at least wrote that, Josh, which is more than Ava Beyond Reality will ever do.
Of course, before you do your pick, Ed, of course, Kobe, you mentioned that all the social media posts are still up. That's because all the teams are on a flight at the moment to Mexico. And of course, Ava, it has been shut down. She cannot be turned on while on a plane.
Airplane mode teams is all. Oh dear.
There we go. Right. I wonder how, when AI take over in the future, how dated a lot of this is going to seem on this stream. But anyway, in predictions, right? I'm not going to get an AI to do it for me. I'm probably gonna. I have had at least a few practice runs picking winners for Mexico. Here we go. We got pick a winner advertised just to my left here, which an AI has not come up with. You've got to come up with the winners yourself. So of all the candidates that we talked about, I think the one that I'm going to go for Mexico, at least, I think I'm going to stick with Jake Dennis, who won there last year, who is our reigning champion. I think his performance last year was really, really exceptional. Probably should have been on pole if it weren't for the fact that his front wing got a little bit damaged earlier in qualifying, and he was sent out into the duels with his front wing that was just about hanging on. So Di Grassi, understandably, with a bit more downforce, was able to snatch it from him. But in the race, he was superb, took the lead, never really looked back, and managed things superbly. So I think Jake Dennis is going to win for Andretti Porsche. In terms of the championship, though, I think Robin Freins in the Envision is going to be my pick. And that's what I said earlier in the week. And I thought I'd reiterate it here just to make sure that 4 or 5 times I've been asked this now. I've said exactly the same thing. Robin Frines, 2024 Formula E champion. You heard it here first, and before time back.
Ed,
Oh,
thank you
Adam
very
agrees
much.
with me.
Adam agrees, yeah. And Matt Cursor as well. Oh, dear. To be
Couldn't
fair,
resist.
though, now we finally know why Attack Charge isn't going to be in for the first couple of rounds, because they've got to work out how Ava doesn't stop exploding every time the cars come into the pit lane. Like the
Oh my
interference. And so you can't have your mobile phone near a
Whatever
telephone.
you do,
Oh.
Josh, promise me you will not
RF
Google
going on.
Ava Beyond Reality Rule 34 for me. Please don't do
I
that.
promise. Don't worry. Although I am very much looking forward to the Formula E game, of course. Detroit Beyond Human, part 2, which is coming out. Oh dear, this is going to get better and better. Buemi, a surprise winner for me, says Jose Amigo. Actually, Buemi's my pick for the race winner in Mexico, just to get it out later on. I'll keep my pick for the World Championship secret there as well. But Ed, we'll let you get off for the evening. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll let you recharge, so go plug yourself in, make sure to get on airplane mode, and make sure you're on 100% ready for Mexico.
I think I might do the human method of recharging, which in this case, as you can see behind me, involves sleeping. So thank you very much.
Airplane mode for humans is knocking you out, sir.
But unlike Philip K. Dick, I will not be an android dreaming of electric sheep, if that's okay with you. So good night, guys.
Good night, Ed.
fun.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks,
yeah.
Ed.
And on to our second story then, which is not artificial intelligence, although some people think his brain is over here in the UK. AJ Foyt Racing has completed its 2024 Entity IndyCar Series driver lineup ahead of the content day, as they've confirmed the return of Santino Ferrucci to the number 14 Sexton Properties Chevrolet. Now, Ferrucci said he expects to come out of the gate more prepared than he was last year, and hopes the new technical alliance with Team Penske will make things a lot smoother. He's also excited to return to the Indianapolis 500 again, seeking his 6th consecutive top 10 finish. On the last episode of Grid Tonight, before we went on a holiday break, we discussed the signing of Stingray Robb to the number 41 Chevrolet and how that impacts the contract Benjamin Pedersen signed last year. Now, according to the Foyt press release, the team made it a point to mention that the team is not planning to field a third full-time entry for the 2024 season. That means they'll move forward with Ferrucci and Robb as their drivers, leaving Pedersen without a spot on the team. According to Marshall Pruitt from Racer.com, Pedersen allegedly broke the terms of his contract and got dropped. The graphic courtesy there of AJ Foyt Racing. Kobe and Matt still alongside me for tonight's show. Kobe, starting with you, do you think we'll see the number 14 team improve from last season with Ferrucci returning? And could there be trouble brewing on the horizon with Pedersen being let go?
Well, I think the hope is for AJ Foyt Racing to show some improvement this year. If you have a technical alliance with Team Penske and don't show any improvement, I don't really know like why you still be around and all of that, because Team Penske, is the best of the best, and any team on the grid would want to dream of having an alliance with the captain organization. But I think AJ Foyt Racing is definitely going to benefit from Penske, getting some of their people integrated with the team, learning the Penske way, how they operate, being able to look at data from the Penske drivers. I think that's going to be very helpful to Santino Ferrucci and Stingray Robb. So I'm actually cautiously optimistic that we could see AJ Foyt Racing show some improvement across the board this season. Maybe not at the beginning, but as the season goes on, I really think that the team across the board can certainly jump a few spots in the standing. I'm not going to say that they're going to immediately be super competitive right away, but I think they can certainly show some minor improvement, and who knows how this team will do. But I definitely think for the month of May that AJ Foyt Race is going to show a lot of speed. They showed a lot of speed last year with Ferrucci and Peterson. Ferrucci, very impressive. He very well could have won last year's Indianapolis 500. And if you add the Penske equation to the situation, been able to have their data for the month of May, I think Ferrucci and that 14 team could be a dark horse to potentially win the 2024 Indianapolis 500. It's just been amazing watching Ferrucci take to this track. Kind of reminds me of how Carlos Munoz did so well for those handful of years he was here. I don't know what happened to Carlos Munoz, but he was quite the master of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we're certainly seeing a lot of the same from Santino Ferrucci, and being able to continue with the same team. I think that's also going to help Ferrucci and his number 14 team continue to build on some of the few positives that they had last year. And in regards to Benjamin Peterson, I'm just going to say, we just have to wait and see what happens here. We haven't heard a peep from Benjamin Peterson since he put out his own little statement welcoming Stingray Robb to the team and saying how he was looking forward to working with him. We haven't heard nothing from Benjamin Peterson. And when today was the first day of IndyCar Content Day, and there wasn't anything said about Benjamin Peterson, so I guess we'll hear an update from him later on. But it would not surprise me if we end up having a situation here regarding Peterson that could potentially go into a courtroom. But hopefully we can avoid that.
Hopefully I didn't disappear again. If I did, I apologize. But again, I didn't touch anything. Yes, I agree with you, Kobe, about there's a good comparison actually, Ferrucci and Munoz, because he was very good at, especially at Indianapolis, in the Andretti car for those handful of years that he was there in the mid-teens. But Ferrucci's been very good, especially in qualifying, and was in the fast 6 from memory last year at the 500. I know Matthew Owens is very high on Santino doing well at the 500, and this is a really good signing for that team to continue with Santino. I don't think they'll. We talked about this a little bit last week on the Roundtable show, where we've got Penske, Ganassi, McLaren, Andretti all at the front of the field. I don't think you're going to suddenly see AJ Foyt bump up into that high echelon with the Penske tyre. It's going to take some time, of course, but they'll come good throughout the season and be there, especially with Santino leading that team. The Pedersen thing is going to be interesting to see how that works out. Josh, you'll remember, it must be 10 years ago, maybe now, in the Manisha Kaltenborn days of Sauber, when they had Ericsson, Van der Gaard, Nasser, and Esteban Gutierrez all trying to get in the cars at Melbourne in Formula One all those years ago, and they had 4 drivers trying to get in 2 seats. This feels a little bit like it's going down that same train. I'm sure it'll all come out in the wash over the next couple of weeks or so, as of course this Santino news has only been confirmed and out to everyone today. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with Ben.
Yeah, I remember that Friday back in 2014, 2015.
Yeah.
It was one of the two, wasn't
Somewhere
it?
around
And, yeah, Guido van der Garde literally going to an Australian judge to try and get him in the car. And then the FIA turning around and said, well, if you do that, we'll strip you of your super license and we'll ban you from any FIA event because you've received outside interference in a racing matter that's governed by the FIA. It got so messy. I mean, eventually it cost Manisha Kaltenborn her job as team principal at Sauber as well. So it was quite a messy time for the team now known as Stake. Yeah, Stake.
Sauber.
Yeah, it's just Sauber, isn't it? Because they can't be called Stake in many parts of the world. They can't even be called Kick in many parts of the world. So for simplicities, it's Sauber. Now, after a short time apart, 2 old partners are getting back together, with iRacing and IndyCar signing a new multi-year license agreement. Yes, finally! Now, this means that the popular iRacing Indianapolis 500 will return to the special events calendar along with official IndyCar branding, multiple leagues running IndyCar events on iRacing, and license extension of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The licensing agreement goes into effect immediately, and iRacing members should expect to see the rebranding of the series cars and events in the days ahead. Details relating to the return of the iRacing Indy 500 will be released later this month. iRacing President Tony Gardner said the IndyCar Racing Series and Indy 500 are racing properties that need to be included in iRacing, the graphic courtesy there of iRacing as well. Finally, the mess is gone. We've talked about it so much on the Grid Network shows over the past 24 months. Starting with you, Matt, is this a case of all's well that ends well?
Yes, it's the mess that this has been over the, as you said, the last 18 months or so, finally has come back around, and it shouldn't take too long for iRacing to just bump the content straight back on, and away we go as if nothing had happened, really. Love to have a fast enough computer and time on my hands to have iRacing, but if I did, I'd certainly be giving the IndyCar stuff a spin, because as much as I was looking forward to the console game and the touring car one and all the other ones that Motorsport Games promised, they have under-delivered massively. They've still got their Le Mans Ultimate game apparently due out next month. I'll believe that when we see it. But the IndyCar situation has been rectified, and pretty much been rectified in the best way possible.
And Adam Limmer said he's very happy for iRacing and IndyCar. Yes, I'm happy as well, Adam. This is certainly a great thing to see. And Matt, you brought up the console game. We're still not sure what's going to happen for IndyCar's future on console gaming, but in this case, I rather them take a wait and see approach and see what their best options are. I know we've been waiting for a very long time for an IndyCar console game to happen. We've waited quite a handful of many years to get a game, and it looks like we're going to be waiting a lot longer. But once this game comes down the line, hopefully it will be worth the wait. But I think this is definitely a beautiful ending to see iRacing and IndyCar back together where they belong, and like you were saying, Josh, is like they never left.
Still not the game I want though. Please just make The Simpsons Hit and Run 2. It's been 21 years. Just let me have it, please. Okay, so on to what is our favourite news story, because it literally broke about 4 hours ago. It's our hot topic for this evening. Earlier this afternoon, we received a major breaking news story that Guenther Steiner is out as team principal at Haas F1. Ayo Komatsu will replace Steiner as the new Haas F1 team principal, receiving a promotion from his role as director of engineering. You've been seeing him on the pit wall throughout 2021, 2022, and 2023. He has over 20 years of experience in Formula One, focusing on engineering and management. In his new role leading the team, Komatsu will be responsible for the team's overall strategy, on-track performance, while maximizing the team's potential through employee empowerment and structural process and efficiency. Also, taking phone calls from Gene Haas. In a statement, he says, "I'm naturally very excited to have the opportunity to be team principal at MoneyGram Haas F1 team. Having been with the team since its track debut back in 2016, I'm obviously passionately invested in its success in Formula One. I'm looking forward to leading our program and the various competitive operations internally to ensure we can build a structure that provides improved on-track performances. They need a better font. Now, the team plans to strengthen themselves off-track by hiring a European-based chief operating officer to manage all non-competition matters and departments. However, this person ends up being will work out the team factory in Banbury. Now, that's in the UK, just to let everybody know, for those of you in the States. Now, Haas decided to change team principals this late in the off-season, only weeks before the 2021 F1 team car reveals, and pre-season testing certainly raises a lot of questions about the direction of the team. According to Luke Smith from The Athletic, Haas wanted to have a more technical focused team leader after finishing last place in the Constructors' Championship last season. Adding to that, team owner Gene Haas and Steiner had different visions regarding the future of the team, so both parties felt it was time to part ways. All graphics in this section courtesy of Haas F1. Gene Haas has released a statement saying, "I'd like to start by extending my thanks to Guenther Steiner for all his hard work over the past decade, and I wish him well for the future. Moving forward as an organisation, it was clear we need to improve our on-track performances. In appointing Ayo Komatsu as team principal, we fundamentally have engineering at the heart of our management." Seems finally he's woken up. As Alex says, this should help the argument for Andretti to get back on the grid. I feel like a lot of the reason Haas had as many American fans as they did was due to Steiner being the breakout star of DTS, that's Drive to Survive. Well, Netflix has melted down this evening. Box to Box has literally boxed themselves up in a crate and is crying. Are you stunned, Kobe, by Haas moving on from Guenther Steiner? And what does this move mean for the future of the team?
Yeah, I was absolutely floored to see this news. I know there were a lot of rumors going around leading up to this announcement, and Josh, you were the first one who brought this to all of our attentions this morning about the rumors that Guenther Steiner was going to be at it. At first, I was like, no way. I said, this has got to be a silly rumor. He's going to be there at the start of the 2024 F1 season, and then at noon Eastern time, like right on the dot, we get the news that Guenther Steiner is out as team principal at Haas F1. So yeah, it was a really shocking decision. I didn't expect to see anything like this, but Gene Haas felt like he needed a change to improve his organization, and that's the move he decided to make. And I know if you're a fan of American football, you may notice Black Monday's happening this week in the NFL with lots of head coaches, general managers, assistant coaches, coordinators getting fired and all of that. When you look at the team principal is basically the head coach of the Formula One team. And at the end of the day, when your team is not performing, they need to hold someone accountable. And a lot of the times it's the head coach who gets held accountable. And if you look at Haas F1's performance, especially in the Constructors Championship, they really haven't been competitive. And last year was not a good year at all for Haas in the Constructors Championship. So at some point, you're gonna need to look in the mirror and say, what do I need to do to improve my organization? And it seems like Haas felt that they needed to have a new voice in their locker room at Haas F1. They needed to have a new direction, a new vision. And while I really like Guenther Steiner and think he's quite the character, being popular and Drive to Survive doesn't score your points in Formula One. It doesn't win your races. It's not going to win your world championships. It's not going to win your constructors championship. So in situations like this, you just really have to do a full evaluation. And if you think a change needs to be made, you need to go ahead and make it. And as far as the future of Haas F1, I'm not sure what the future lies here, but well, as you've seen with the other team principal changes, we've known those months ahead of time. So you could all prepare for this, but this comes really late unless Haas already knew they were going to move on from Steiner earlier, just decided to make it official after the new year. But according to that article you referenced with Luke Smith from The Athletic, Smith said that they made this decision right after Christmas, that they were going to move on. So the transition is happening way later compared to all of the other changes that we've seen in leadership across these F1 teams. It's certainly going to be an interesting story 2024 and see if the change is going to be a positive one for Haas F1.
Not the only change at Haas, of course, today, with Simone Resta, the technical director, also leaving. And he looks like he's on his way back to Ferrari. A couple of points on this. Congratulations to Komatsu, because he's been in Formula One a long time, and now he's finally got himself at the top table. He was Romain Grosjean's race engineer for quite some time. The beginning of the Haas era, and has worked his way up to the top. So let's hope that they can change the fortunes of the team, etc., and bring them back up the Constructors' Championship. Point two, as brought up by Alex before, and Ben Schneider was onto this way early, that this surely now is the catalyst for Gene if this continues. Jane, sorry. The catalyst for this to change now. His involvement in the sport, and Michael Andretti be on the phone to him and go, if you're going to go out, ring me first, please. With all the Andretti saga that's been going on that we've reported on this show multiple times. It's a shame for Guenther, but this does really smack of poor management that they've had to change this so late on. You mentioned, Kobe, Black Monday. That, basically the Monday after Abu Dhabi, basically in an NFL world, we're 6 weeks away from the first Grand Prix. 6 weeks. Just this should have, and you mentioned it probably was done before, and seems like it's been done before Christmas. #sell the team, says Ben. But just no time at all. And of course, we've talked endlessly about the extension to the F1 calendar over the last few years. There is no time for messing about now. You've got to get things done and get it done early. And I just feel like this is not helping Haas. Already, they had that big upgrade that did nothing for them last year, and they were cut adrift towards the end of the season. And I feel like they're going to be cut adrift all of this coming season in 2024 with this raft of changes that have been announced today.
What was his book called? It was Driving to Survive, Surviving to Drive,
something like that.
Yeah, I picked it up in Waterstones the other day at half price. I wish I'd brought it now to go through the 2022 season. I'm looking forward to the sequel though, as well. It's got to have some title, isn't it? That's really, really shocking. I can't wait. Joe Samaniego says F1 will look pretty poor if no Andretti and Haas continue with their struggles as well. It will indeed, but it's actually Survive to Drive. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just check as well.
Drive, Well, what's it now then? Oops, I did it again. Something like that. Gene hit me one more time. I don't know.
I wonder if Guenther took it out on a door on his way out. He was told he wasn't going to be.
To be fair, I've been thinking about
Renewed his
podcast
contract.
titles tomorrow. That what can I get away with as well with all these swearing antics. But it is actually quite big. Before I hand over to you, Kobe, for your news segments around the world, he was the third longest team principal in Formula One
amazing.
behind. Yeah, because it's Christian Horner
Horner and Toto.
at 19 years. Toto is at 10 years now, and Guenther was there at about 8-9 years. So it is crazy that he's gone. Let's not forget, Guenther Steiner didn't just come into it with Haas. He's been in Jaguar, he's been in Arrows, Benetton. He's been around Formula One for a very, very long time, has Guenther Steiner. So for him not to be on the grid next year is going to be a very, very big deal. Could we see Guenther Steiner in broadcasting? I'm going to say no, because the amount he swears, I think any broadcast that picks him up will get Ofcom on their backs very, very quickly.
He did the COTA NASCAR race, didn't he, last spring with Fox, which was a strange
Haas, isn't it?
job
It's Haas.
for him to get. Motorsport Broadcasting on Twitter actually put that up this afternoon as a poll. Would you like to see Guenther join the Sky team? Yes, no, or don't care. I selected no, because they've got too many people as it is, for a start. I don't think he'd bring anything to it. Alex says, I wonder if the delayed announcement was for Haas to do the full rebrand between both his teams, and this was just the finish. Well, as Kobe mentioned, and Luke Smith reported, this has already been washed out, it seems, pre-Christmas. Guenther is supposed to be this weekend coming due at the NEC, the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, for the Autosport show, as a guest on stage. So A, it'll be interesting if he turns up, and B, it'll be interesting to see what he's got to say.
He is going to turn up, and David Croft is going to be doing the interviewing. So that kicks off today, doesn't it? Yeah. So Thursday, 11th of January, and it'll be available to watch around the world on Autosport. I really do highly suggest you watch it, because that's going to be very big entertainment. Okay, over to you then, Kobe, for more news.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more point on Guenther. You remember towards the end of the 2023 F1 season, there were rumors going around that he was in talks with CBS about doing a comedy or something like that. So So if Guenther is gonna take a sabbatical from the F1 paddock, it sounds like he has something lined up potentially if he does a comedy show.
Oh,
How I Met Your Reserve Driver. Some team principals do have them.
Oh God.
Yeah. Joe says he has a comedy show deal. He might get into acting, and given his popularity on Drive to Survive, it would not surprise me to see Guenther Steiner get into acting and all of that. And
8 out of 10 teams.
Only fools and K-Mags.
Oh dear. Outnumbered would be better. Outnumbered.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll take it away with some other motorsports news stories from around the world. In a move that left many picking up their jaws off the floor, Kyle Larson is entering the 2024 Chili Bowl Nationals at the very last minute. Larson, a two-time Chili Bowl winner, joins the forces for team owner Ken Coons and Pete Willoughby, driving the number 98K midget car with sponsorship from DH Horton, Flow Racing, and HendrickCars.com. Larson becomes the sixth NASCAR driver entered in this year's Chili Bowl, joining the likes of Chase Briscoe, J.J. Yaley, Josh Bilicki, Jesse Love, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who just filed a late entry within the last few hours. According to Flow Racing, this deal came together yesterday morning at 8:13 a.m. when Larson called Coons to congratulate him on Monday's preliminary win with Tanner Carrick behind the wheel. Then Larson asked Coons if he had another car available. Coons said yes, and Larson immediately started making arrangements to travel to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Larson is scheduled to compete on Thursday night, and if he locks himself into the A main with a top two finish in his race that night, he plans to do something called the Dirt Double right before his big double in the month of May, running the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. And earlier in the day on this coming Saturday, Larson will be racing at Vado Speedway Park in the Wild West Shootout, driving a dirt late model for Kevin Rumley. This event is taking place in New Mexico, by the way. Then Larson plans to fly from Vado, New Mexico, all the way to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the battle for his third Golden Driller on the same day, assuming everything goes according to plan. It's in graphic courtesy of the Chili Bowl Nationals. So it looks like Kyle Larson might be doing two doubles in the same year, one on dirt and one on asphalt at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Venturini Motorsport signed Amber Balkin to run full-time in the 2024 ARCA Menard Series season. Balkin will drive the number 22 Toyota Camry sponsorship from Icon Direct. In 2022, she ran full-time with Rick Jones Racing and got 6 top 10 finishes that year. Last year, she only ran 3 races at Daytona, Talladega, and Kansas, with her best finish of 6th place coming at the World Center of Racing. Balkin becomes the second driver announced to run full-time with Venturini alongside Chris Wright. TGM Grand Prix has announced the signing of Juju Noda for the entire 2024 Super Formula season. Noda will drive the number 53 Honda, getting an opportunity to compete in her home country of Japan for the very first time. She becomes the first female to compete in Super Formula since Tatiana Calderon made select starts in 2020 and 2021. However, Calderon didn't score any points in her race, and this is something Noda will look to accomplish as she competes in one of the premier open wheel racing series in the world. Noda is currently 17 years old, and she's going to be turning 18 early next month. And according to Super GT World, when Noda makes her Super Formula debut, she'll become the youngest driver in the history to compete in Super Formula, graphic courtesy of TGM Grand Prix. AO Racing's creativity continues with a new character and livery being introduced to the sports car racing world, with Rexy and Roxy, the dinosaurs, being a huge hit with the fans, especially the kids on the Porsche GT cars. The team named its LMP2 car Spike, the purple and orange dinosaur. Team principal Gunnar Jeanette said after many months of incubation, they were finally ready to hatch Spike to the rest of the racing world. He added that Rexy was such a huge hit with everyone that they wanted to give the fans a dragon to cheer for in LMP2. And speaking of Rexy, that livery is going to continue this year in IMSA in GTD Pro with Seth Prio, Lauren Heinrich, and Michael Christensen, graphic courtesy of AO Racing. And I think they kind of missed the mark there with the number 99. While I really like Spike the Dragon, since I'll be in the number 99 for all the IMSA OGs, imagine if they had a red livery so we could bring back the Red Dragon. I'm sure a lot of people remember the Red Dragon from from the IMSA, maybe from a decade ago, when they were racing in the Grand Am Rolex sports car. So they really love that livery. And now I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt, for everyone's favorite game, first time this year. Pick a winner.
Last seen the Red Dragon being absolutely smashed to pieces by Memo Gidley at Daytona in a horrible accident in the early stages of whatever years, 24 hours that was. Should have been called Spyro, frankly, because it's purple and it's a dragon. Pick a winner back then for 2024. And we have our first pick a winner race coming up this Saturday, Formula E Saturdays in Mexico, as we were talking about at the top of the show. There is the leaderboard. It is blank, and we will update it next week with everyone that picks a correct winner, if we get, of course, a correct winner for our first pick a winner race of the season in Mexico on Saturday night. I'm going first, and I'm going with Nick Cassidy to be my pick a winner for Formula E on Saturday.
Yeah, it's new having this pick a winner music. It's kind of distracting. It'll take some getting used to. But for my pick, give me Mitch Evans to win the season opener in Mexico. Josh, who are you going with?
Doing the same.
I feel like I'm on a Japanese game show right now. I love it. It's like I'm on Gran Turismo, something in the 90s. I love it. Right, for Mexico City, I'm going for Sebastian Buemi to win the opening race of the year. And I give you my championship prediction right now of Pascal Wehrlein to win the championship. I'm loving this. I love it.
We'll update the scoreboard, and then we've got a couple of weeks off for all Formula E, of course, in Syria and IMSA, the Road 24 at the end of the month. And of course, as we talked about on the Roundtable show last week, the pick a winner leaderboard will also, of course, revolve into the 2025 Grid Factory draft, as we did it at the end of the show last week. No hots and nots to talk about tonight, as Joe's going for Buemi as well. He's joining you, Josh, on the Buemi train for Saturday. No hots and nots this week, but we'll get to them as we get more involved in the season. Good to have you back, Josh, for the first show of the new year.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be back, and it's nice to have everybody back in the right place. There was some awesome music in the background as well. That was great. Can't wait to have that more. Jam session every Wednesday then. All good with me? I'll get me guitar. I can't play guitar. Megan's got a normal guitar as well. Actually, that's still like I can play a flute. I'm on a penny whistle. I'm learning that as we go along, so that's quite good. I can give you the inner light from Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm very much like Picard. Okay, so on Saturday, January the 27th, we'll have our annual Rolex 24 at Daytona pre-race show. That link is already up, ready to watch on YouTube, so make sure that you hit the notification bell as well. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel now so you don't miss one of our biggest shows of the year. Thank you for helping us reach the milestone of 800 subscribers. Now help us reach our new goal of 900 subscribers on the road to 1,000. Hit the bell icon to get notifications for when we go on the year, and follow all our social media platforms and visit gridranking.com. Take 5 minutes to invest in the Grid Network through Patreon. Join Colin, Mark, Deshelle, Robin, David, and Matthew, who invest each month in the Grid Network, and we encourage you to join these fine folks who keep us on the air. Now, once we hit $500 per month, we can start sending our team to the track to cover more races and continue expanding our coverage. The link to all that is in the video description. And if you want to do a one-time donation, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link, get your name on the board, and invest as much as you want. And consider buying a specific on-air personality a cup of coffee, and they'll thank you on the air. You can also support us by donating during our live streams through Super Chat as well. For Kobe Lambeth, Matt White from Grid Endurance Performance Index, and Ed Hunter from Formula E Zone, I'm Joshua Birch. Thank you very much for watching. First one done at 24. It's good to be back, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.